The first question is, what is the best piece of motherly advice you've ever gotten or given for that matter?
Well, that was tough. I couldn't remember any super great advice, but something came to mind that my mother would always say, that there's no sense in worrying. And she was from the South, and she was kind of funny, and she would sort of just give us these anecdotes like, there's no sense in worrying. You might walk outside today and get hit by a bus, and then you'd worried for naught. So, but it's true. Worrying is a waste of time. So that was the first thing that came to my mind
She
for
made
worrying or for motherly advice.
That's good. That's good. For advice. Here's the next question: is what is the best or worst Mother's Day gift you've ever gotten?
Well, I'd have to say the best Mother's Day gift that I'd gotten was actually not on Mother's Day, but on February 10th, 1988. And that's when I had my first child. And that was, I became a mother. So that was my very special, most memorable Mother's Day gift that I could think of, even though it was on Mother's Day. And of course, a second time in October of 92, I was blessed again with a special Mother's Day gift. So those are my most special memories for Mother's Day.
That's a good answer. That's a great answer right there.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, first off, Stephanie, happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. I can't say happy Mother's Day back, but thank you.
So here's the first question. And the first question is this, is what is the best piece of motherly advice you've ever either heard or received in your life?
Well, I've been thinking about that question. And to me, keeping the lines of communication open at all phases of your children's life. And believe me, it can become frustrating. But it's important, I think, to by trying to do that, you find things that interest your kids.
Yeah.
And then you go and do those things with them, even if you don't like to. Because those things are going to be what opens up the communication lines when they need to talk. They'll see that you try. And I think it's very important.
Which leads to the last question. Last question is this, is there a Bible verse or that has helped to encourage you maybe through the season, or what you would say is maybe a life verse for you?
Absolutely. I have a lot of Bible verses, but Isaiah 41:10 for me, I received that when I was going through cancer the first time. I went through cancer twice. And it's, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not anxiously look about you, for I am your God. Surely I will save you. Surely I will help you, and I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And that to me has carried me through many seasons, because we've gone through seasons of cancer fear, financial fear. Now we've got the coronavirus that's in our nation. And God does not want us to fear. In fact, he said, do not fear, so many times in the Bible. The other scripture that goes with that is in 2 Timothy. God has not given you a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. And this is the time when we have to have faith and believe that God is telling the truth.
Yeah.
Isn't she lovely? Isn't she wonderful? Isn't she precious? Such a beautiful soul. I never thought that I would be son to someone as lovely as she. Isn't she lovely? She's my mom. Isn't she pretty? Truly the angel's best. Boy, I'm so happy I have been heaven. such a beautiful soul. I can't believe I get to be son of someone as lovely as she. Isn't she lovely? She's my mom. Isn't she lovely? She's my mom. Isn't she lovely? Isn't she wonderful? Isn't she precious? Such a beautiful soul. I never thought that I would be son of someone as lovely as she. Isn't she lovely? She's my mom. Isn't she pretty? Truly the angel's best. Boy, I'm so happy. I have been heaven blessed. I can't believe what God has done. I might be the luckiest son, but isn't she lovely?
Well, hey, we just want to welcome you to Church Online, especially if this is your first time joining us. I encourage you to maybe take a moment in the chat box and just let us know where you're watching this from. And I also want to encourage you to take advantage of the prayer request button at the bottom of your screen, as we'd love to know how to be praying for you this week. Well, hey, it is a Mother's Day weekend, so we thought it'd be fun to kind of kick things off doing something a little different, as I want to play a game with all you moms that we're calling a Song of Solomon or Hallmark movie. Song of Solomon or Hallmark movie. So here's how this is going to work, is I'm going to share a quote, and you've got to figure out if this is from the Song of Solomon in the Bible or if this is from a Hallmark movie. And I encourage you to keep track of your score because at the end of it, I'm going to ask you to post your score in the chat box, as we're going to be giving away some pretty cool prizes to those with the highest scores, and those who have maybe not the best scores. We're going to enter you in to a drawing for some giveaways that we're going to be kind of giving away throughout this whole service and time together. So, you ready? So, Song of Solomon or Hallmark movie. And I got my trusty helper, Austin, who's going to show you which one it is, what the right answer is. All right, so here's the first one. You can listen to your mind, but you have to follow your heart. Is that from a Hallmark movie or the Song of Solomon? You can listen to your mind, but you have to follow your heart. That would be a Hallmark movie. All right, yeah. Hopefully you got that one. Here's the second one. Is love is invincible facing danger and death. Love is invincible facing danger and death. Is that Song of Solomon or Hallmark? The answer is Song of Solomon. That's right. All right, here's the third one. It says, I believe in promises, ones that last, ones we make with God and ones we make with each other. Hallmark or Song of Solomon? Answer is Hallmark. All right, here's another one. I love the past, but I have found more joy focusing on the here and now. Hallmark or Song of Solomon? Answer is no. Trick question. That's Hallmark. A Hallmark. Here's another one. Now you have my heart. Keep it next to yours and bring it back to me. I will always love you. Now you have my heart. Keep it next to yours and bring it back to me. I will always love you. What do you think it is? Answer is Hallmark. Yes. All right, just a couple more here. I threw my arms around him and held him tight. Wouldn't let him go until I had him home again, safe at home beside the fire. Again, I threw my arms around him, held him tight, wouldn't let him go until I had him home again, safe at home beside the fire. What do you think it is? Answer is Song of Solomon. Yeah.
Just a couple more. Sometimes we don't have what we need until we find it. Sometimes we don't have what we need until we find it. Hallmark or Song of Solomon? Answer is Hallmark. Yeah. And that brings us to our last one, which is this: his words are kisses. His kisses words. Everything about him delights me, thrills me through and through. His words, let me say that again. His words are kisses. His kisses words. Everything about him delights me, thrills me through and through. What do you think it is? Answer is no. It's a Song of Solomon. Song of Solomon. Well, hey, again, thank you for playing along, and again, encourage you to post your score and your name in the chat box there. Again, the highest scores, we're going to give away some pretty cool prizes. And even if you didn't do so well on that little quiz there, I encourage you to still post your name and your score, as you'll be entered in for a drawing, in which we're going to be giving away a bunch of cool stuff throughout the service today. With that, so glad you joined us. And now it's time to get our worship on.
Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me yet. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail. Your promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands.
once again, I just want to say happy Mother's Day, especially to all of our amazing moms joining us online right now. If you haven't already had a chance to maybe just let your mom know how much you love her, how much you care for her, I want to encourage you right now to just take a quick moment and give your mom a shout out. Maybe just in the chat box, just type in a couple words that express maybe what you appreciate most about your mom. So maybe it was her encouragement, maybe it was her prayers. I know for me over the years, one of the things I've come to appreciate most about my mom was just her advice, just her wisdom in life. And in fact, probably the best piece of advice my mom ever gave me, I got to say, came on the heels of maybe one of the worst decisions I could have ever made as a kid. As I think I was about 12 years old, when my older brother came to me with the opportunity that sounded like the opportunity of a lifetime. And this was the offer. The opportunity was to trade out my bowl cut. Anyone grow up with a bowl cut for a hairdo? Yeah, you know my pain, right? And it was the opportunity to trade out my bowl cut for a chance to come away looking like this. Yep, come away with hair looking like Kevin Bacon straight off the movie set of Footloose, right? And so he's sharing me this opportunity of a lifetime, and I'm listening to this, but it came with a catch. And here was the catch, is that for me to have a chance to come away with hair looking like this, I was going to have to entrust my hair, and in many ways entrust my life in the hands of my older brother. In the hands of my older brother. And so I thought about it for a moment, I wrestled with it, and then I just came to the point, I'm like, you know what? All right, okay, let's give it a try. And so my brother, he walks me down to Brother's Barber Shop, AKA the guest bathroom, and he pulls out some scissors and he just starts cutting away. Just starts snipping away. Hair is flying all over the place, and he starts working on my hair, and only for a few minutes later, he kind of wraps up, he gets done, and I walk out of there, and unfortunately, instead of walking out of there with hair looking like this, how many know I ended up coming out with hair that looked a lot more like this? Anyone relate to these pictures? In fact, some of you are sporting this very do right now. But let me tell you, some before COVID-19 haircuts, which is what these are, became a trend. Look, I was sporting this look long before that. Long before it was trendy, long before it was a thing. And I remember coming out of the bathroom with this newfound COVID-19 hairdo, and I was so mad. I was so livid, as I couldn't wait for my mom to get home, because I thought, you know what, even though I can't get my hair back, at the very least I can get some justice for this. And so my mom, she comes home, she walks through the door, and I immediately run over to her, tears streaming down my eyes, and I'm just infuriated. And I remember just telling my mom, like, do you see this? Do you see what happened to my head? Like, how am I going to show my face to the world ever again? And I remember my mom just looking at me, and again, she was frustrated. Like, I could see her. She was visibly upset. But I remember her looking at me and her saying something and giving a response that I was not expecting. I remember her looking right at me and looking me right in the eyes, and she goes, you do realize that you did have a choice in all of this. You had a choice in all of this. Like you do realize, like your brother, he didn't make you sit down in that chair and get that haircut. Like he didn't make you be a guinea pig for his hairstyling experiment. You had a choice. And look, I share that with you, and that's a really in many ways sort of my title for the message today, is that you have a choice. Because interesting enough, in Hebrews 3, which is the passage we're going to look at today, when the author of Hebrews sort of really kind of summarizes the lessons to be learned from the nation of Israel's journey through the wilderness, in so many words, in so many ways, he kind of summarizes the lessons to be learned with giving some very similar advice. In fact, check this out in Hebrews chapter 3, starting at verse 7. Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as you did in the rebellion during the time of testing in the wilderness, where your ancestors tested and tried me, though for 40 years they saw what I did. That is why I was angry with that generation. I said their hearts are always going astray, and they have not known my ways. And this is the key verse here in this text. It says, so we see that they were not able to enter because of their unbelief. Because of their unbelief. In other words, what's he getting at? They had a choice.
They had a choice. Sure, maybe it wouldn't have been the choice to go through the wilderness. Maybe it wasn't their choice in terms of what they got to eat. Maybe it wasn't their choice in terms of being stuck in a place they didn't want to be. But they did have a choice. And here was the choice they had, and the choice that you and I have, regardless of what we're going through in life. And it's that I can't always choose what I go through, but I always have a choice in how I come out. I can't always choose what I go through, but I always have a choice in terms of how I come out. This choice to be bitter or better, this choice to be weaker or stronger, this choice to be fearful or faithful. Again, we always have a choice when it comes to how you come out of what you're going through. In fact, I like how Viktor Frankl speaks to this. For those that don't know who Viktor Frankl was, he was a famous Holocaust survivor who went on to be an accomplished writer, an author, and psychologist. And I like when he speaks of this fact that we always have a choice, what he says. Here's the quote. It says, "Forces beyond your control, they can take away everything you possess, except one thing, your freedom to choose. Your freedom to choose how you respond to the situation." Again, you might not be able to choose what you go through, but you do have a choice in terms of how you come out. How you come out of it, either bitter or better. And so I want to, with the time we have, I just want to share kind of three quick choices. Three choices you and I can make each day that regardless of what you're going through, I think can have a direct impact on how we choose to come out of our times of testing. And the first choice is simply this. It's to choose to appreciate life. Choose to appreciate life, and specifically the miracle of your life. The miracle of your life, especially when you consider just the odds of you being you. Have you ever thought of this? Like the fact of just you even existing? I mean, think about it. In order for you to be here, get this, your parents, out of 10,000 years of human history, had to be born at the same time in human history. Then out of the 6 billion people in the world, they had to find each other, like each other long enough to have you. And if that was not amazing enough, let's put this in some biological terms here, is that when it came to having you, you were, get this, the product of one of 200 million cells connecting with one of 2 million female egg cells. And if there was any other combination, get this, you wouldn't be here. In fact, when scientists actually crunched the numbers on this, they figured the odds of you just being here work out to the odds of 400 trillion to 1. 400 trillion to 1. Think about that. Just to put that in perspective, imagine we found 2 million people and then found the world's largest, biggest Colosseum, and we just stuffed them right inside that Colosseum. And then we gave each one of those 2 million people a single dice. And not just any dice, not just a 6-sided dice, but a dice with 1 trillion sides on it. And then we said to them, look, you've got one roll. You've got one roll at this. And so they all roll their dice, and it happens with one roll, they all happen to roll a 7. Look, that is the odds of you just being you. That is what the odds of 400 trillion to 1 looks like. I mean, come on, you don't even have to believe in God to just be amazed at the fact that you're you, right? But you add the reality of God to the mix. Can I tell you, it just compounds the miracle all the more. As in Jeremiah 1:5, it says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. In other words, you're not simply the result of probability or chance. You're the result of a God who chose you. Of a God who chose you. A God who, get this, had 400 trillion options and choices. And yet out of it all, he chose you. Out of it all, he chose you. That at some point in time, God looked at all the choices in front of him and said, nope, 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 nope. Maybe, no, no, nope, 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 nope. Hold on. That's the one right there. That's the one I'm choosing. That's the one right there. The one with the thinning hair, the one with the awkward haircut, the one who can't sing, the one with the Dallas Cowboy t-shirt on. Come on. That's the one right there that I choose. Again, can we just pause and just think about that for a moment? I mean, think about how amazing that is. Out of 400 trillion options, God chose you. God chose you. But look, let's not just stop there. See, that's just a probability of you being born, but what about the probability of you even being here?
Like, when was the last time like you thought about and remembered back to all the things you had to survive just to get here, just to make it here? I like what it says. Psalm 91:7 says, 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near to you. In other words, here the psalmist, he's reflecting back on all the things that he survived that, let's be honest, others around him were not quite so lucky. He's drawing this remembrance, and I think reminding us to remember all the things that we survived just to get to where we are. The failure, the addiction, the disappointment, the accident, that you made it through simply by God's grace and simply by God's mercy and simply by God's goodness in your life. Again, so important that we take time to choose to just appreciate life. The miracle of just you being you, of just even you even being here. This choice to appreciate life, this choice that I think matters so much, because I think it gets right to the heart of why so many of us tend to feel stuck in life. Why so many of us tend to feel stuck in life, because let's be real. There's a lot of you watching this today that look, if you're being honest, you felt stuck in life long before you found yourself stuck in the house because of COVID-19. Am I right? Right? Maybe you found yourself feeling stuck in a job, or feeling stuck in a relationship, or feeling just stuck in a place you didn't want to be. But get this. What if the reason we tend to feel stuck in life, and this is the question that I think it kind of gets right to the heart of why so many of us feel stuck, is that what if the reason so many of us tend to feel stuck in life has less to do with where we're at in life, but rather how we see where we're at in life? How we see where we're at in life. In fact, I love how the prophet Isaiah speaks to this. In referencing this wilderness time in the life of the Israelites, check out what he says, Isaiah 43:19. He says, see, I'm doing a new thing. I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Don't you see it? I'm making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Again, notice it wasn't where they were at so much that was causing them to feel stuck. Because again, notice what God says. He's doing a new thing. He was doing a new thing there. But rather, get this, it was their inability to see the new thing God was doing. Their inability to see the new thing God was doing. And the reason they couldn't see it is what I think brings us to the second choice you and I have to make if we hope to make it out of this season, not simply bitter, but better. And it's simply this. It's this choice to choose to see life in context. Choose to see life in context. In fact, getting back to that passage in Hebrews 3, interesting enough, when the author kind of gets to the root of so much of God's kind of frustration, even anger towards the nation of Israel during this wilderness time, the reason he gives, I don't think is always the reason we tend to think it is. Like I think we tend to think that the reason God was so frustrated with them so often was just their constant complaining. But look, you got to understand, it wasn't simply that they complained that got frustrated, as much as it was a failure to put their complaints in the right context. As much as a failure to put their complaints in the right context. It wasn't that they were ungrateful as much as it was they were forgetful. In fact, check out how the author of Hebrews describes this. It says, today if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as you did in the rebellion during the time of testing in the wilderness, where your ancestors tested and tried me, though for 40 years they saw what I did. 40 years they saw what I did. That is why I was angry with that generation. That is why. Again, it wasn't that they complained. It was that they failed to put their complaints in the right context. In the context of his goodness, in the context of his mercy, in the context of what he had brought them through. Again, it wasn't that they were ungrateful. It was that they were forgetful. 40 years they saw miracle after miracle God performing in their lives. In this span of this 40 years, they got to see the miracle of the plagues that would lead to their freedom out of Egyptian oppression. They got to see the miracle of the waters of the Red Sea parting so they could walk on dry ground. They got to wake up to bread from heaven, manna every single day. Again, it wasn't so much that they complained as much as it was a failure to put their complaint in the right context. And again, look, something else you got to get. This is not about God like somehow looking for some attention, looking for a gold star from us, like a pat on the back, but because I think God understands something we got to get. And what we got to get is this, is that when you don't have the right context, how many know you will always jump to the wrong conclusion? Right? When you don't have the right context in a conversation, right context in life, how many know you will always jump to the wrong conclusion? And that's exactly what we see in the nation of Israel.
As here, again, failing to put their life in full context of all that God had done, all that God had brought them out of. As a result, they find themselves landing on a wrong conclusion about their lives. And this was the conclusion. This was the false assumption they had made, was that somehow their best days were behind them, that somehow their best days had passed them by. In fact, we see this actually in Numbers chapter 11, as this passage actually kind of gives us some insight into the details around some of the very complaints that are referenced in Hebrews 3. Check this out. It says, now the people complained about their hardships and the hearing of the Lord. And when he heard them in his anger was aroused. The rabble with them began to crave other food. And again, the Israelites started wailing and said, if only we had meat to eat. And then check this out. It says, we remember the fish. We remember the salmon. We remember the trout we ate in Egypt at no cost. Doesn't it sound amazing? At no cost. Free food. Also the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions and garlic. It sounds straight like a food item straight off of an Olive Garden menu, right? And if we're not careful, we can look at this and you can almost think that God somehow like delivered them out of like Paris or Fiji or Kokomo. But lest we forget where God actually delivered them from. That's right, a place called Egypt. Like 400 years under Egyptian oppression, 400 years in slavery. Like there was a reason the food came at no cost. It's called rations. It's called rations. They gave it to you so you wouldn't fall over while you were working. You didn't have to pay for it with money because you paid for it with sweat and labor and work. And so it's here they start kind of just going down this trail where they start remembering the fish, but forgetting the times when their kids were fed to the fish. Remembering the bread, but failing to remember the bricks. Remembering the leeks, but failing to remember the lashes. As here they go down this road and they start to struggle with an issue that I'm just telling you, some of you ladies might have thought only your husband ever struggled with. And the issue and the struggle was simply this. It was selective memory. Selective memory, this failure to put life in context, and as a result, making this assumption that somehow their best days had passed them by. Somehow their best days had passed them by. And look, we do the same thing, don't we? We do the same thing, but we don't call it our best days. We call it the good old days. The good old days. Failing to remember that, let's be real, not everything about the good old days was good. Not everything about the good old days was good. Like I know it's easy, especially in times like this, to maybe look at our kids and think, oh, if only I could be a kid again. Like I look at my boy sometimes and like the biggest decision he has to make in a day is, am I going to have peanut butter and jelly sandwich or grilled cheese for lunch? And it's like, oh, how great it would be if only I could go back to the good old days of being a kid. And look, while certainly being a kid is great, how many know not everything about being a kid is great? Case in point, 6th grade. Like 6th grade. Like, do you remember what 6th grade was like? Do you remember how awkward it was, that first 6th grade dance? Like, do you remember the times you couldn't find a seat at the lunch table? Do you remember the times you ran for your life from the bully in school? Like again, I'm just trying to just encourage you. Look, if we're going to remember, let's make sure we remember it all. Remember it all. You know, I find a lot of times we can tend to have selective memory and tend to take life out of context. When it comes to looking back on our old life. I don't know, for some of you, maybe you recently made a decision for Christ, and it could be easy to sometimes think that, once I make that decision, somehow life is going to be like all rainbows and unicorns and Lucky Charms. Only to you get a few weeks into it, maybe a few months into it, and realize, man, I'm still wrestling with some stuff. I still got some issues in my life. This is a struggle. This is hard. This is hard, and it can be easy to kind of look back on the old life and just remember the good old days. I remember the times, just look back on it and think about all the times, all the fun you had, all the partying you had. Failing to remember that not everything, again, of the good old days was good. Failing to remember those times where you came home struggling with that hangover. You came home hunched over the toilet. When you came home, lost and broken and hurting and just feeling like your life had no meaning and feeling like your life had no purpose. Look, I'm just saying, if we're going to remember, let's make sure we remember it all. We got to choose to put life in context. Life in context. And look, when I say that, I don't just simply mean putting our life in the context of what God has brought us out of or what he's brought us through, what he's done, but also putting our life in the context of what he's doing. Which leads us to the last choice that I think you and I need to make if we hope to come out of this season not simply bitter, but better. And that is this choice to trust the process. This choice to trust the process. In fact, I like how it speaks of this process in Isaiah 43:19. Again, it says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland." I love that. I'm doing a new thing. You know, we live in a day where it seems like everyone is trying to find someone to blame for the season and the crisis we're in. Like, have you noticed how, like, you turn on the news and you see them blaming China or blaming wet markets? I don't even know what a wet market is, right? And but it's like this blame game that is kind of hitting the airwaves. And I was thinking about this, and look, I actually kind of want to add someone on the list that you might not have thought of. And that someone I want to add to the list of blame is us. That's right, you and me. Now, before you start logging off, before you start getting hurt feelings, I'm not really blaming you. But what I am trying to get you to see is that before we just start praying for everything to go back the way it was, go back to normal. Listen, can we take a moment to just reflect and remember back to some of the very things we were praying for just a few weeks ago, just a few months ago? Listen, how many of us were praying for this very thing? Praying, oh God, I pray you would just do a new thing. Do a new thing in my marriage. Do a new thing in my relationship. Do a new thing in my life. Do a new thing in my life. And again, this is why I say you got to choose to trust the process. Because notice where this process begins. It doesn't start out there. Notice it says, now it springs up. Do you not perceive? In other words, it doesn't start out there. It starts in here. When God wants to do a new thing in our life, in our relationship, in our careers, in our situation, he starts by doing a new thing in here. And again, I share that with you because could it be that part of the reason we're going through the wilderness is not simply so God could just take us back to the way things used to be, the way things were. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of things I look forward to getting back to. Like I look forward to us being able to meet together in person, not via video. I look forward to us being able to watch sports and cheer on the Dallas Cowboys. Like I look forward to all that stuff. But could it be that part of the reason we're going through what we're going through, why you're going through what you're going through, is not simply so God could just take you back to what was? But could it be that part of the process is because there's a God who's wanting to do a new thing in your life, wanting to take you to a new place in terms of your relationship and your dependence on God, wanting to take you to this place where you can experience a new life that starts by choosing to put your trust in Jesus. Choosing to put your trust in Jesus. You want to see God do a new thing in your life? Again, he starts in here. And for some of you, again, it starts by asking Jesus to come into your life, by asking Jesus to be Lord and Savior of your life. And so if that's you, I want to give you that opportunity today by simply praying this prayer with me right now. And so Jesus, right now, I ask you to come into my life. I recognize that I've made more than a few mistakes, more than a few slip-ups. But I believe that you love me enough to come on this rescue mission, to leave heaven to come to earth, to pay the price in full for all of my sin and all of my shame on that cross. And because of which, Jesus, I now ask you to come into my life as I choose to make you Lord and Savior of my life. I choose to step into the new thing that I've been so praying for by stepping into the new life that's found in this relationship with you. In Jesus' name, amen.
There is a fountain that never runs dry, forever flows the water of life. You never stop moving, you never stop moving. Wherever runs, everything lives. Wherever goes, never rest again. You never stop moving, you never stop moving. and